It was a cold, rainy evening in Mobile, Alabama, when Army Lieutenant Colonel Robert Risden stepped into a Taco Bell, simply intending to grab a quick dinner before heading home. Dressed in uniform, he carried himself with the quiet discipline of a man who had seen and endured much in service to his country. He had no idea that within minutes he would be part of a moment that would touch thousands of hearts across the nation. As he approached the counter, something caught his attention: two young boys, shivering and darting between tables, speaking in hushed tones to customers. Their clothes were damp, their hair matted from the rain, and in their hands they clutched small boxes of homemade desserts. They weren't there to cause trouble. They weren't begging for money. Instead, they were trying to sell their treats to raise funds for their local church. The younger boy, just 9 years old, carried himself with an innocence that tugged at the heart, while his 13-year-old companion tried his best to appear confident, masking the discomfort of being turned away again and again. Risden overheard them quietly asking, "Would you like to buy something for our church?" But what struck him most wasn't their sales pitch. It was the look in their eyes. They were hungry, tired, and very much alone. Jason Gibson, a man sitting alone and enjoying his meal in the corner, noticed it too. The boy's presence stirred something in him, but before he could act, he saw Risden turn toward them. What happened next made Gibson pause mid-bite and reach for his phone. The soldier called the boys over and asked them a simple, unexpected question. "Have you eaten dinner yet?" Their answer was a soft, almost embarrassed, "No." Without hesitation, Risden gestured toward the counter. "Come with me. Order whatever you want. Tonight, it's on me." The boy's eyes lit up instantly, the younger one bouncing on his toes with excitement. Gibson, moved by the sight, began recording, knowing he was witnessing something rare and genuine. As the soldiers stood in line with them, guiding them through the menu, there was no grand gesture, no expectation of thanks, just quiet compassion. The boys ordered tacos, drinks, and enough food to fill their empty stomachs. Risden chatted with them as they waited, asking about school, their church, and their dreams. The conversation flowed easily, and the boys' nervousness began to melt away. When the food arrived, the younger boy couldn't help but beam. At one point, he looked up at Risden with admiration and said softly, "I want to be just like you when I grow up," before giving a small, respectful salute. It was a moment so pure that Gibson, behind the camera, felt a lump rise in his throat. In a world so often filled with cynicism and selfishness, here was a man, a soldier, giving without a second thought, expecting nothing in return. As the video spread online, people across the country learned more about the man behind the uniform, Lieutenant Colonel. Robert Risden wasn't just any soldier. He was a U.S. Army Ranger, a father of two, and a man whose life was shaped by a code of honor. He later explained that his actions came from instinct, rooted in the Ranger creed, a vow never to fail his comrade. "Those boys were my comrades that night," he said simply. "They were cold, wet, and hungry. Helping them wasn't a choice. It was my duty." The boys left Taco Bell that night with full bellies, warm smiles, and a story they'd carry forever about the night a stranger in uniform treated them like family. For Risden, it was just another day of living by his values. For Gibson, it was a reminder that there is still kindness in the world worth sharing. And for everyone who watched the video, it was proof that even the smallest acts, a meal, a kind word, a little time, can ripple outward and inspire countless others. In the end, the soldier walked out into the rain as quietly as he had entered, leaving behind two boys whose hearts were warmer than their hands, and a memory that will never fade. Sometimes, the most heroic acts happen far from the battlefield, in the simplest of places like a Taco Bell on a rainy night in Alabama. And sometimes, the greatest victories are measured not in medals, but in the smiles of those we choose to lift up when no one else will. As the story continued to circulate online, people began reaching out to the boys' church to ask how they could help support their fundraising efforts. Donations began trickling in from strangers across the country, many of them moved by Risden's quiet act of generosity. The boys' pastor later said that the attention had given the children a renewed sense of hope, showing them that there are good people in the world who will step in when others turn away. It also reminded the community of the importance of looking after one another, especially the youngest and most vulnerable among us. For Risden, life went back to normal, or as normal as it could for someone who had become an unwitting viral figure. When asked if he realized how many people he had touched, he simply smiled and said, "I didn't do it for attention. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Yet in that modest response lay the true power of his gesture. In a world often divided by differences, he had bridged a gap between strangers, proving that kindness is a language everyone understands, no uniform required, just a willing heart.